Fit like a bee, Danny boy here, and I'm back with a vengeance. Now, before I get started, I'd just like to add, this is just a quick video. This isn't actually a full-length episode. The full-length episode will be tomorrow, but before I even start this, I would like to apologise for the fact that there's been no videos up for like the last 10 days. The reason is about 10 days ago I put up a Surviving Mars episode while I was trying to rebuild the USA map, and on the Sunday night I got a phone call and I was asked to go to a ship, a dive vessel that was actually docked in a harbour just near where I stay. It's about half an hour away. I was basically told I'd like 45 minutes to get there. One of the guys on the boat was having a really rough time. He'd been on there for a month. He had 2 weeks left to go before the boat job was actually finished. So I said I would go. So it was a bit of a disaster from the start because I hadn't packed anything. I didn't have any movies or games or anything, or any TV shows or anything on my laptop or iPad. I did take a couple of books with me. Thank God. If I did not have that books, I would have jumped clean off the edge of the boat because it was that bad. Now, I got to the ship. I got told I had 45 minutes to get there. I was a bit late. They were actually just waiting for me to get there. I had a quick handover with the guy that was coming off the boat, and he said that it was a total nightmare ship. It was just a disaster. He didn't go into great detail why, he just sort of told me what was happening. Some new chemicals had been taken on board. They'd taken on fuel and food stores, and enough to last for another month. And I was like, oh dear God. Now normally before I leave I do a little video or something just saying that I'm going offshore, where I'm going, or when I'm on location I take a video. Sometimes it's hard on oil rigs or well sites because you're not really supposed to have cameras or your phones there, and you shouldn't be taking videos of that. But I thought I'd make a video just as I was as the ship was leaving the harbour and that. But before I could do any of that, the ship set sail pretty sharpish. About 15 minutes after I arrived on board, I had about 2 hours worth of inductions and like safety inductions, where my lifeboat is, where the life jackets are, what to do in the event of a fire, all that kind of crap that you get on ships and oil rigs. I then had to go and meet all the people from the company that I was working for, the guys on the vessel, other people from my company but not in my department, and the other companies that were there. And by the time I'd finished all this, the boat had actually gotten so far out to sea that I had no like phone signal. I have like 30 gig of data I can use a month on my mobile phone. I normally go through about 17 gig of that just watching crap while I'm out and about, or if I'm at work or anything. So I then went on to the Wi-Fi. One of the guys that was working with me, not for the same company, said that, did the guy who left hand over the situation about the internet on the boat? I said no. And he says, when you come on board you start off with 1 gig of data. This includes your phone and laptop, everything, even for using sending work emails and things. You get 1 gig. After that runs out, you then have to pay £28. That's UK pounds. £28, which is about, I don't know, $35 or something, for 800 megabytes of data. And I was like, Jesus, that's pretty terrible. So needless to say, my first gig of data did not last. It lasted less than 12 hours. I set up the computer, sent my boss an email, sent my mother a message saying that I had been called away to the boat because I didn't get a chance to tell her before I left. The only person I told, my girlfriend, and it was gone. The guy from the boat says you can actually phone up and ask, just say you didn't know what the situation was, the data, they'll give you another gig for free. Got the other gig, again, didn't last any time at all. One of the guys that I was working with then came and showed me, he was like, basically, every app you have that uses push notifications or anything, you need to delete it. So I had to delete all my apps, remove myself from every single WhatsApp conversation or WhatsApp that I had, apart from I'd left the one for my sister, my little brother and my girlfriend. There's only 3, and I just sent them like a message every day to see how things were going. Most of my friends thought I'd literally fallen off the face of the earth. Nobody had heard me from a week. One of my friends actually thought I was dead. And I was like, no, I was just on the boat from hell. So everything was gone. Facebook, YouTube, all the WhatsApps, everything else. I had to delete everything, and the guy said this is the only way to save data. And then he said even when you're emailing work, maybe giving them updates, we had to send an update every day. My boss then sent me a file that had photos in it, 10 photos, and the 10 photos basically wiped out. To retrieve that email and open it, totally wiped out the 800. I think I bought like 5 packages, so about $150 worth of internet, and I was like, this is a disaster. But luckily my company does actually reimburse me because I was buying the internet for work purposes, so I could send the emails. Without it, it would be completely hopeless. No one in town would actually know what was happening with the job. So I did need it, and I will get it back, thankfully. So what was the debacle with the internet on the boat? The ship itself was quite nice. It was quite new. The internet is not really the ship owner's fault. It's the oil company that it's currently working for. They can choose whether to use better Wi-Fi or facilities for their crews on board. But the oil company I was working for is known quite... Everyone sort of knows that they're quite cheap. They don't really treat their crews very well. So there was no surprise that the internet and things was a total disaster. There were satellite phones and that for calling home. So that was the only other means of communication, and I had nothing on my iPad or laptop. No movies, no TV shows, no games, nothing. So I basically had 3 books that I just thrown in my bag, luckily enough. If I didn't have them, I would have went totally batshit crazy, because the other part of the death ship was, if you've ever worked on a ship, especially a ship that has to stay in position like a dive ship or a drilling vessel or an offshore supply boat or a standby boat, anything like that that has to stand off of a rig, they use the thrusters and dynamic positioning to keep it in place. And my cabin that I was staying in was in an area of the ship called Thruster Alley. Now, any of you who have worked in a ship that have had to live in accommodation in Thruster Alley, I feel your pain. It's okay when the boat is at sea, it's not too bad when it's going to location. Once it's on location and they fire up the thrusters to keep it in place, dear God. I didn't sleep for about 8 days. It was so loud. A guy even came into my room with a decibel meter to measure the sound, and found that not only was it not appropriate for sleeping, but that I would have to wear hearing protection in the room. So that was a total disgrace, and I could see why the guy that had been on the ship before me for a month needed off. I mean, I was only on for 10 days. I hated it, and I often don't moan about things. I just sort of get put to places and I just sort of get on with it. I've been to some of the nicest places in the world, I've been to some of the worst, and they've used to keep your head down and just work, just get on with it. But this time it was absolutely horrible. So I eventually got off. We're off the ship of hell, I sent my boss a amusing voicemail saying that I would never ever be setting foot on that vessel again for love nor money. Wild horses could not drag me back to that boat. So I am home for how long I don't know. Before I got called away to the evil ship, I was working on this. Now, I did a short little video before I left, basically saying that after the patch, my save game of the high detail and Transport Fever USA series had gone kaput. I'd lost it. There was a few mods that weren't working. I managed to remove them. I thought I would get it going again. It did not. It was just crashing, and it wasn't coming up with an error. It was going straight to like a Windows Transport Fever nonsense. Transport Fever has had a heart attack and you will have to start again, basically. So I did. So before I left, I had actually started building some of this. So I built the oil refinery or fuel refinery back up in Houston. As you can see down here on the right hand side, we're at 1852. I rebuilt the train yard. We've got this sort of cool old school road vehicle depot, because the other ones were a bit new age looking, especially for horse and carts. I did use the big depot. I was interested to see if it looks like, and I think it looks quite cool. Got some little smaller depots around the place and some clutter, basically things you would find in a train yard. So as it was almost. Dallas is kind of the same. We do have the intercity train, the Houston intercity train, back on the go. Now I basically put all the trains back on, rebuilt the lines just to see if they were still working. Everything seems to be working fine. We do have the livestock farm. We've got some pigs. I think this is horses. I know people don't really eat horses, but we need a farm to breed horses for all our horse and carts. Over here is sheep. Over here is cows. So these cows will be for slaughter. We've got some lazy cows. We've got some active standing up cows. This one is goats. These cows and these goats are for producing milk, because we have the dairy farm here. Nice. So, and we've got some dairy sort of tanks and things sort of spread around the place. Could be a bit more detailed, but I basically, since I got home this morning, just worked constantly and trying to rebuild everything. Over in Amarillo we have the oil fields, and we've got like sort of oil storage here, some oil production buildings, some derricks here, which I thought were pretty cool. I'd like to see more of this stuff. And you'll see here in Amarillo that the passenger station is now here, and the freight station is now on the other side. We've got a little church, a little graveyard, a little farmers market. So that's pretty cool. Got the ploppable town buildings back in. Not much, but we will add more as the game progresses. We've got our grain farms. Both grain farms here. They are taking grain to here. You'll see a grain train here. Now, if I click on this, we'll just play it for a moment since we've got some things happening. 253, 225, and 197. This has only been playing for 2 years. Now it seems to have taken off a lot better at the start of this than it did in the previous startup that I did. Everything was kind of slow, but this has really gone actually quite fast, to the point where the trains I have on the line, I have 2 grain trains, 4 crude oil trains going to the oil refinery terminal over there in Houston, going down this side. So 4 of these, and I have 4 approaching from the San Antonio side. You'll see him heading down. He's basically heading down the opposite direction. And 4 is really the max amount I want to put on these lines. Once trains get better, I'll be able to put on bigger consists. But just now, they are running fine, and we are getting a lot of produce, which is pretty awesome. got a little silo in here. I'm not sure if that'd be for grain or what it would be for, but since grain's being loaded here, I thought it'd be cool to fire that in there. The Wild West Frontier line again has been built. It spans from Los Angeles to Phoenix to Albuquerque to Dallas. No, it goes to Houston actually, and then it goes to New Orleans and it stops in Atlanta. We could get another one from Washington, Nashville, Oklahoma, Dallas, etc. So everything has been built back up. Everything is running a lot smoother. This is actually not going to be a full episode. It's just a sort of recap of why I disappeared off the face of the planet, and that I do have everything sort of built up and rolling again, so we'll be able to start adding new lines and things. The coal mine that I built here has not been rebuilt yet, and down here in Albuquerque I'm going to build like a little town of Santa Fe and build like a Santa Fe freight yard somewhere, either here or at this side. Can't really do it. I suppose I could do it in here because this is quite flat. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's basically it. It's just a quick recap to let you know what was happening. The next episode will be up tomorrow. I'm going to record it straight after this one, now that I've done explaining everything. But that's basically it. If you did actually watch this and you'd like to leave a like or comment, please feel free to do so. And if you'd like to see more if it's happening in the future, then hit a subscribe button. But I've been Danny Boy. This has been Transport Fever. It's good to be back, and I will catch you later.